Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AskDrBGood show, the show where we bring you the politics, the pedagogy, and the practice of public education. As always, we have so much to share with you. It never seems to be enough time, but one of the big issues always that I try to bring up pretty regularly is mental health. And some of you are saying, oh, mental health again? Well, what I have been able to do, I hope, and I've not heard any complaints, is bring you a variety of people who bring their understanding of how to better help people cope through this very interesting time. And so with us today is a recently left school counselor. So she's got that school background and now she's in private practice. So she's going to be able to share with us what it's like being out there, not only in the schools, but then outside of the schools in the real world, sort of. So, Wanda, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, so my name is Wanda Hudson and Dr. Good is correct. I have 11 years of experience as an educator, and most recently I've had the pleasure to start my own private practice as a licensed professional counselor here in Dallas, Texas. And so I offer private therapy and some mental health consulting, and I'm also a certified mindfulness teacher. So I have a lot of options to offer as it pertains to mental health for those that may not want the therapy, but just need a little more guidance in how they can be a little stress-free.
So were you planning on leaving school by the summer before COVID hit? Or was that just, did you leave because of COVID? Or what? That's sort of interesting timing, right?
Yes, it is. Good question. Actually, yes, I was planning, back in December, I had already talked to my principal and told her that, I was being led in a different direction, and that I would resign at the end of the school year. So in February, probably really about the end of February, about 2 weeks before our spring break, I actually went ahead and made it official by putting in my letter of resignation. So me starting Wanda Hudson Consulting in the middle of a pandemic was already in the making. There was no going back for me.
Well, one could really think it's good timing you're selling something, so to speak, that's really needed more than ever, right? Mm-hmm. You have a higher power looking out for you. Before we talk about your private work, can we talk a little bit, what was it like in the school setting? You were a counselor in a large ISD. Talk to us, what was it like?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it was stressful. I think it was stressful even for us as the mental health expert or the mental health professionals with all these tools on how to manage stress. It was stressful because we were forced to do something that we had never done before, and we were forced to do it in such a short period of time and no time really to prepare. Like there was a lot of confusion and fear, even probably came with some anger of why are we doing all of this. So I can remember being on spring break, and our spring break was like the week before everybody else. It was like the second week of March. So we should have been back at school like the week of the 18th, 19th. And I can remember seeing how the COVID cases has increased and wondering myself, what was that going to look like? I have 504 meetings. I have meetings. I have a due process hearing. What is this going to look like? So there were a lot of different emotions when we first found out.
So do you feel like your school had a strong early response? And looking back, how was the response rate for making sure that families felt supported, kids felt supported, and staff felt supported?
Oh, I feel like our district definitely had a really quick response. Our counseling department is definitely one of the leading counseling departments, I would say, even though I'm not in the district anymore, it's definitely one of the leading counseling departments in the area. And so we immediately, once we found out, once it was official, because there was some back and forth on whether or not, we would be able to go. It started off like spring break was extended for a week, and then it went to 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks. And so once we figured out and realized that, it's going to be for a little while, the counseling department got together and we created a counseling support Google Classroom for our feeder high schools. And so basically what that looked like is the 5 high schools in that district, all of their elementaries and all of their middle schools fed through one high school. And so kids joined this Google Classroom and we created a Google counseling referral form. And so for that, they were able to go on and request the opportunity to speak with a counselor as needed. And we had leaders at each, at the high schools and leaders at the middle school that would man that spreadsheet and would be able to let us know when we had a kid that was on that spreadsheet that needed to speak with the counselor. So that was like the beginning phases of the rollout for the support from that district.
Was your first focus the kids first, as opposed to maybe staff or parents?
The first focus, I would say, was the kids. However, at the same time, the kids, the parents, and the staff go together. By that is, we have staff members that are also parents. And when we're trying to figure out what we needed to do for kids in their education, it comes with questions for parents. And so because this pandemic is something that we have never encountered for most of us in our lifetime, and even those of us that were around in the 1920s for the flu, it looks a lot different, with technologies and the options that we have. And so basically, we were learning as we were going. When our focus was on the kids, that probably came with questions from the teachers. It came with questions from the parents, like, so what does this look like? And so as we got the questions or as something didn't work, then we had to change. And so I would say that it was all connected. While the focus, we really wanted to be on the kids initially because they're our clientele, ultimately the focus ended up being system-wide, if that makes sense.
So you're right. Everything is blended in, and you can't help kids without a lot of times supporting the families or the teacher maybe who is not meeting the needs of kids and who needs to have those needs met. Did you feel like there were additional or other resources that were made available to you all by the state, by TEA, by the district that you could really use, or did you feel sort of on your own as far as coming up with resources to help the families?
No, I do think that we were able to use resources. We had pickup. We had certain campuses that was set up, and they were set up as campuses where you can pick up technology. The district got together and they were able to help in making sure that families that needed the computers had computers. There were campuses that were set up that if you needed lunch, if you needed food. I know on our campus, my principal, her church actually donated food weekly, and we would even as a staff, we would drop off food donations to make sure that those families that were in need of food were able to come by and get food, because the district that I was in is every campus in that district is a Title I campus. And so we know that with Title I, there's a large number or a large percentage of families that don't always have the financial means to be able to get what the school usually offers as far as a breakfast every day and a lunch every day. So as far as resources, I really do think that we were able to pull together as a district and make sure that our kids had the resources that were needed. The district has social workers. The social workers did a great job at getting resource lists that would then once again be funneled through the counseling department when they would find out who was giving out free cable, where were the free hotspots, who was, what churches were giving out food, any resource that you can think of. We were able to get that out to our families as needed.
So, it's really nice to hear that. We, as school districts across the country, have been, pointed at as archaic and slow moving. And you just gave another example of a district who just stepped it up, and probably in a way that none of you, even within your district, could have predicted. Mm-hmm. We couldn't predict any of this, and so the fact that you guys stepped in and stepped up the way you did, it just warms my heart, because I just keep hearing that across the country. I really think our politicians and those who are not friends of public education need to really, really change their narrative around, around us, because I'm active superintendent, and I'm very proud of what our district did. I'm proud of what your district did and other districts that we've had people on. And so making sure that we all are advocates for public education. That's why I'm here. That's my job, is to sure I turn everybody that I can into an advocate for public education. And I was doing that before the pandemic, and now even more. It's urgent that people admit that maybe we're not so archaic. Well, thank you. Now, you were giving support in school. How much of what you did during COVID helped and is helping you for your private practice? Were you able to have any takeaways there?
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Could you repeat the last part? I'm sorry.
Were you able to have any takeaways from the COVID that you can actually use in your private practice?
Yes. It is actually a suggestion that I even in my private practice now kind of bring up a lot. And one is the circle of control. One of the things that I was able to do in my district this year, even not pertaining to COVID, was to really create an atmosphere that promotes mental health for our whole campus, especially our teachers as well, because a lot of the times, like we said, our clientele is the students. And I feel like if our clientele is the students and our teachers are the people and our staff are the people that offer this service, then we want to make sure that they have great mental health as well. So I created this is really cool. The position I left, I was actually the first middle school mental health counselor in that district. We were once known as crisis counselors, and then they changed the name to interventionist counselors. So before my role, they were only housed at the high school. And so after that first year of experience, I had all of these ideas. And so for teachers, we actually offered every 6 weeks an opportunity to do yoga or mindfulness. Like I said, I'm a mindfulness teacher. And so during the pandemic, we wanted to continue that even more, because outside of the classroom, and I know you probably saw this in your district as well, our teachers, they really had to step it up, and they did an excellent job at stepping it up. And because I'm not in the classroom, I can't imagine the amount of stress that came with. So we wanted to give them a safe place. We wanted to give them a place and some tools that they could use to manage their stress. And one of the things that we did was we did coffee with the counselors. And coffee with the counselors was another initiative that I started last year. It was really for parents, but for this, we wanted to give it to our teachers. And so the first topic that we discussed was understanding your circles of control. And so basically, there is the circle of concern and there's a circle of control. And when we are able to put it down on paper and actually see it, we understand that there's not a lot that we can control. And so that is one thing that I really use with my clients in private therapy, is understanding the circle of control and understanding that that circle of concern is usually as a result of our thoughts. Our thoughts, I use a lot of cognitive behavior therapy, and that model just shows the connection of, you have a situation and there are the thoughts about this situation that can play an impact on your physical sensations, your emotions, and then ultimately it can really determine how your behavior or how you respond to that situation. So those are some strategies and tools that I'm able to use in my private practice that I really started focusing on and had the opportunity to focus on during the pandemic.
So let's talk a little bit about your private practice post. And when I say post-COVID, I know it's not over, but you're out of school, you're in your private practice. People are, have been through weeks and months of shelter in place and being anxious. Well, how's that playing out? How bad is it for people out there?
It's ongoing. And what I mean by that is the parents that I see in my private practice, we really have to be mindful. And I know, like, I throw that word out a lot. So those of you that are not familiar with mindfulness is just being in the present, non-judgmentally, noticing what's happening and trying not to attach to it. And the reason why I say we really have to be mindful and be present is because, as you know, everything continues to change as far as some districts started off with virtual, and then they were like, we're going to do the hybrid model, and then, oh no, we got a bunch of, so now we have to go back to being virtual. And so because we're in a state of constant change, which is something, like I said before, we're not used to, we have to work extra hard with being intentional on being aware of our thought process and noticing when we're having some racing or irrational thoughts, and beginning to use some tools to bring us back to the present moment.
So you I like your circle of control, circle of concern. I'm sure people can identify with that and start wrapping their brains around that, because that's what it takes. But you also brought up another good point about time. It takes time, doesn't it? Do you have people that come in for a quick fix?
I do have people that try to come in for a quick fix, and so this is usually an initial consultation with me. If the opportunity presents itself, I really try to help people understand their brain. And when we start talking about mental health, we're really talking about all of the experiences that we have experienced up into this moment that make up how we respond to things, that makes up our emotions. And we've learned, research now shows that, the brain is a muscle. And just like any other muscle, we can grow our muscles. And with the brain, the way that we can grow it is with practice. Well, and practice is going to therapy regularly, practicing mindfulness, deep breathing, yoga, self-help books, self-help podcasts like the one that you're doing. But when doing that, understanding that you're now starting something that you may not have started before. So then the growth mindset comes into play, because it takes time. Instead of saying it's hard or I can't do this, understanding that you may start off, you may go a couple of days and you're able to notice your thoughts and take a deep breath, and then you have a day where you can't do that and you're sad and you're angry or you respond in a way that you don't like. And so we have to learn how to offer ourselves forgiveness and compassion so that the next day we can start all over again. And with time and with practice, we will eventually get to a point to where we're able to respond in a way that doesn't lead to the same stressful reaction that it led to a year ago.
You make a good point, and I want to emphasize it again because we are a society of quick fixes, right? And it took a while to get you that anxious and that depressed, and now it's going to take you a while to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And excellent points. Do you have any resources or websites where people can tap into you and find you and so forth?
Yes. So I try to make it easy. You guys, you can see my name. I'm Wanda Hudson. My website is www.wandahudson.com. When you go to my website, if you go to services, you can definitely see everything that I offer that I mentioned. One of the things I do want to point out on my website, I do actually, if you're interested and want to find out more about mindfulness, I've created 2 self-paced online courses. One is for anybody. And when I say anybody, it'll make sense when I get to the second course. But this one is a beginner course for anyone that's interested in mindfulness. It gives you 7 different strategies. And one of the things that we do talk about is reframing your negative self-talk, which kind of gets into the thought traps that I mentioned before. And then the other course is for parents or adults that work with kids. And this is the part where it makes sense why I said the other one is anybody, because this course is actually geared for you guys so that if you're interested in starting mindfulness and you work with kids or you are a parent, this is a great opportunity for you to learn these strategies while learning with your child. I try to differentiate so that if you have little ones all the way up to high school, there's some type of activity that you can do with your students or with your child. One of the things that I need you guys to understand, if you are a parent or if you're working with kids, your kids, your students, they're watching you, and they're learning how to respond based on what you're doing, especially if you're at that elementary and even middle school. Even if they're at that age to where they act like you're not the cool parent or the cool teacher, they're still watching you and they're learning. And so what better way to teach them how to self-regulate and how to handle their stress than to do it as well. I know I grew up on my mom saying, do as I say, not as I do. And many of you have probably heard that before. However, you probably found yourself later in life doing a lot of the same things that your parents did. And so in order to end some of those cycles that we may not like about, our current adulthood, we can start early with our youth by practicing what we preach.
Excellent advice. I can't thank you enough. You have made it sound not only appealing but safe. And that's one thing that I've said it before on the show, and I wish that we could get people to feel as comfortable with a counselor retainer as lawyer retainers, right? And tap into them as needed during our life's journey. So I have a feeling you would make a very comfortable counselor for somebody in need. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that you've shared your information. I have a feeling you might get a knock or 2 on your counselor door from this. So thank you again.
Thank you. Really quick, and educators out there, I do have a special rate for you guys. So if you do sign up for initial consultation, make sure you mention, Doctor, you saw me on the podcast and that you are an educator.
All right. Thank you for that. Fantastic.
You're welcome.
We are going to move away now to something a little probably more controversial than counseling. And that is an interesting story that came up in the news this week. We have a principal in Florida, Mr. Lawton, and he, 2 years ago, cases take a long time to work their way through the system. He had an email communication with a parent about the Holocaust. And what he said was that he was choosing to remain politically neutral about Holocaust and whether it had happened. And so I thought I would bring this to your attention because I'm curious as to your thoughts around this whole case. So a high school principal in Florida whose 2018 exchange with a parent about whether the Holocaust was a factual historical event led to an uproar, his firing, and a case before a judge, was reinstated on Wednesday after a school board vote. The Palm Beach County School Board voted 4-3, tight vote, Wednesday to rehire Principal William Latson, who was removed from his post last year at Spanish River Community High School in Boca Raton after an email exchange with a student's parent came to light. He will also receive the full back pay of $152,000, according to the board, which adopted the recommended order from an administrative judge. Mr. Lawson will be transferred back in the district, but he won't be in that same high school. He'll be put somewhere commensurate with his qualifications, probably in central office. That's a lot of times we do the geographical cure, as it's called, and we move somebody to central office to get them, out of the campuses. So many have condemned him as a Holocaust denier, and his lawyer says that couldn't be further from the truth. He isn't. He never was. He's a great guy and educator. And it was Mr. Lawton's position that he says, I can't say that the Holocaust is a factual historical event because I'm not in a position to do so as a school district administrator. He said that he had to stay politically neutral and separate his personal views about the Holocaust from his job as a public school official. I do allow information about the Holocaust to be presented and allow students and parents to make decisions about it accordingly, he wrote. I do the same with information about slavery. He is African American, by the way. The publication of Latson's email drew national attention and renewed a long and sometimes bitter debate about the responsibility of educators at state schools. And you saw that the school board itself was still divided by Wednesday's vote of 4-3 to let him back. I'm not defending his stupid statement, said one of the board members. They actually discussed me, but I don't think his statement represents the body of his work. Well, that's good to know. He did have a good reputation prior to that. Another school board member said his rehiring is going to stay in the school and that the school district will never recover from that. And for about the 90 minutes during the meeting, callers, including Jewish people and relatives of Holocaust survivors from around the country, urged the school board in recorded messages not to reinstate the principal. The regional director of the Anti-Defamation League in Florida, Sherry Z, said on Thursday that the group was disappointed that Mr. Latson would be reinstated because of his disturbing comments about the Holocaust and his failure to take responsibility for them. He was fired in late 2019 after the board voted 5-2 to accept the recommendation from the superintendent to fire him. Then Mr. Latson went and requested a hearing before a judge, and the case moved to the Division of Administrative Hearings in Tallahassee, Florida, and Judge Robert S. Cohen concluded that Mr. Latson should have been reprimanded or reassigned to another position at Palm Beach County School District, but not fired. The school district failed to prove that Mr. Latson had engaged in misconduct in office, incompetence, or gross insubordination by preponderance of the evidence, wrote the judge. And so the judge says that Mr. Latson had communicated well with parents, teachers, and students, except for that one parent. And so he also said that the principal's choice of words and methods of trying to express that everyone at the high school has a right to their individual beliefs, even if they differ from required approved curriculum, were unfortunate. So what do you think? Write in the comments what you think about that. Do you think that he should have been reinstated, or should he have not? Was the judge sort of not right to reinstate? Just write your feelings. That is an interesting, sort of an interesting, what do they call it, battle to die on. But then that's why we do this, right? We bring you the interesting politics, pedagogy, and practice of public education, because you can't make this stuff up, and you just have to read the next article, right? So hopping down into something a little bit more fun about the practice of school right now. You know that we have, and I've talked about outdoor schools before. Matter of fact, I've been on several radio stations, gosh, about 2 months ago, when they were all asking about whether we should move towards outdoor schooling. And I saw something that sort of caught my attention, because you actually do have some districts across the country who are doing that. And so let's go to Portland, Maine, where teachers in Maine's largest districts have returned to classes, and the science, technology, engineering, and math coach, the STEM coach, would normally have been spending all her preschool time administering science curriculum and coordinating professional development, but instead what she was doing was out there finding tree stumps and buckets. And she needed hundreds of them, because what the district in Portland, Maine decided to do was to have outdoor classrooms at every single one of their 16 schools. And what they've done is they have a hybrid school for K-9, and the kids come twice a week so that there's enough room to socially distance. And they, of course, have the smaller classes like most of us do, and the older kids stay virtual the whole time. So they have, when the kids came to school for the beginning of the school year, they were given a drawstring backpack, a clipboard, and then they were shown that their new desk outside was a tree stump, and the bucket will serve as a desk. I guess overturned bucket serves as their desk. So take a minute to think about that interesting concept. And of course, Maine, the weather is very mild in the first part, the late spring, summer, early fall. So they're able to get away with that. Because everybody knows that the virus transmission rates drop dramatically outside, and it's safer for both the kids and the adults, right? So this was a great idea that some school districts actually figured out how to do. She partnered with an arborist in the city to locate dozens of downed or dead trees in parks and cemeteries, and then they had them cut into stumps and benches. So she's also working on videos and so forth to help teachers make that transition to working outside. Because she recognizes that teachers and students are on a wide continuum of comfort around being outside. I like the way she put that. We recognize that our teachers and students are on a very wide continuum of comfort around being outside. And we want to recognize that and help them move through that. And she did say that one thing we do know is that outdoor learning is better for everyone. And then they have a little piece in here, and it really jumped out at me. And as they said, if there's a silver lining to the ongoing pandemic, and one of the terms I heard recently from somebody was a COVID blessing. And so I told her I would steal that. So a COVID blessing out of this is that more schools are looking for ways to get more kids outside. For decades, environmental scholars have exposed the benefits of learning outside. The concept became more mainstream in 2005 with the publication of Richard Louve's The Last Child in the Woods, which popularized the concept of nature deficit disorder, and also demonstrated cognitive, emotional, and physical benefits afforded by spending time outside. So I went, what is nature deficit disorder? So I went and I pulled a little one-pager on Richard Louve, and he said he coined the phrase to serve as a description of the human cost of alienation from nature. And it is not meant to be a medical diagnosis, although he thinks it should be, but as a way to talk about the urgent problem that many of us knew was growing but had no language to describe it. The term caught on, and it's now a rallying cry for the international movement to connect children with nature. So although human beings have been urbanizing and then moving indoors since the introduction of agriculture, social and technological changes in the past 3 decades have accelerated the human disconnect from the natural world. Among the reason, the proliferation of electronic communications, poor urban planning, and disappearing open spaces, increased street traffic, diminished importance of the natural world in public and private education, and parental fear magnified by news and entertainment media. Since 2005, the number of studies of impact of nature, the impact of nature experiences on human development has grown from a handful to nearly 1,000. This expanding body of scientific evidence suggests that nature deficit disorder contributes to a diminished use of the senses, attention deficit, conditions of obesity, and higher rates of emotional and physical illness. Research also suggests that the nature deficit weakens ecological literacy and stewardship of the natural world. These problems are linked more broadly to what healthcare experts call the epidemic of inactivity and to a devaluing of independent play. Nonetheless, we believe that society's nature deficit disorder can be reversed. So if I had heard of nature deficit disorder in 2005, I don't remember if I did. But interesting and sort of timely to think about getting kids back outside for lots of good reasons. And now you have another one. So we have another school where, let me talk about some data. There are many academic and emotional benefits to outdoor time. Research proves that even a short amount of time outside can help students with concentration, focus, and offers healing, calming benefits. Evidence also shows that many students who struggle with traditional classroom learning really thrive academically and socially in outdoor settings, especially when they include an experiential component, like going out there and looking at the changes due to fall coming, right? Putting nature in context. That's very important. So at Kethahin School in Maine, Superintendent Marie Robinson spent 5 years working with teachers to expand outdoor education in her district, including environmental education classes. And so she started doing that before COVID. She has something called, for her students, Forest Fridays for kindergartners. And so, isn't that cool? But this year, safety concerns surrounding the pandemic have propelled us to expand these opportunities. And so, for example, Robinson was observing a 3rd grade class where they went outside and they picked up small rocks so that they could use them as manipulatives for their math class. Nearby, 1st graders were making leaf etchings as part of their language arts project. It's entirely possible to meet educational standards with outdoor experiences, but it means communities must also make sure that we're supporting our teachers and our educators in this process. And then they have said, talking about, she's confident that they will be able to stay outside even as colder weather comes. And gosh, they're going to get it before most of us. But parent groups have already formed to get clothes driving donations so that they can ensure that all students have appropriate winter gear. And she's working with community partners to design a pavilion with canvas size that can withstand the snow. So, I mean, I love that kind of can-do attitude. And that's my kind of superintendent, to have a great idea based on research, go out, find partners to fund that for her. And districts in southern Maine have additional challenges. Some are entirely urban and have little or no green space. At Horace Mitchell Primary School, administrators erected a large white tent in the parking lot. And on Thursdays, the small group of 4 students sat in a distant circle. They take turns with the different classes and grades. And Educators walk from group to group, wearing face shields and dispensing hand sanitizers. Teachers say they'd prefer a field or a park, but they're still enjoying the lingering summer weather. Birds, butterflies, and occasional squirrels make appearances, which sparks students' curiosity and leads to welcome comic relief. Making lemonade out of lemons, right? Back in Portland, the STEM coach has worked with teachers at the East End Community School to create multiple outdoor classrooms. And Rory Crossman, who teaches 5th grade, says that she has a community garden there at that school, and that has been a place to build connections with students who come from diverse backgrounds. Many are immigrants from places as far-flung as Iraq and Somalia. And so about 70% of the students are first-time are ESL students, first-time English learners. And so what they're doing is they're not only growing foods from the native country of these students, but then also growing foods from that American area, the main area. And so our outdoor education can create a real sense of learning and balance. It says the teacher, students discover that they can all be curious about the world around them together. Kids want to be involved, and that's what sparks real learning. That always, I'll tell you, those type of articles really help me. I know that I have asked my campuses to do the same. It's been a little harder here because the weather was hot, and but it's now cooling down, and now is the time that we can ask kids to maybe do things like eat lunch outside, have a picnic outside, take the classrooms outside, and go on nature walks. It's just, I do that with my own grandkids here. My grandkids know that we go on science walks and we look for treasures. And if we find certain type of treasures that we can bring home, let's say we found a dead cicada. Some of you know cicadas come up out of the ground every 26 years and they make that strong buzzing sound. And you'll see that they look like big flies. And if we find one, we bring it home to our science box. And so we get to look at it under the magnifying glass and so forth. So having science walks with your kids, with your grandkids, with your students, it needs to happen. Having a community garden needs to happen. I had my grandson help me plant the begonias. And so I have a picture of him when the begonias were real small. And now the begonias are real big. And and he helped me, and he's 4. So this is all foundational work to understanding nature. I'm going to have food boxes next spring. We're going to start growing our own food here so that kids know where food really comes from. It's not Kroger's, it's not Walmart, it's from the ground. So it's a never-ending work, especially for our very, very urban families. And so, speaking of fun, Halloween is just around the corner. And I know that all of you have been very, very anxious to find out about what the CDC says about Halloween. Well, you might be surprised, but the CDC has a lot to say, not only about Halloween, but it has a lot to say about all holidays. And so the important thing is to use common sense more than anything. But let me touch on some things, and then I'll let you make up your own mind. I'd be interested to know your comments and please put your comments around this subject as we go through this together. Of course, the general considerations for fall and winter holidays, and there are a lot of them, gosh, such as Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, Navratri, Diwali, Thanksgiving, Dia de la Virgen de Guadalupe, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, and New Year's typically include large gatherings, right? And so it includes families and friends getting together, parties, and travel that may put many people at risk for COVID. So, But before you celebrate, they want you to remember about maybe hosting outdoor activities. How's that for a segue? Rather than indoor as much as possible. If hosting outdoor is not possible, then choose to host an indoor, but avoid crowds and poorly ventilated places and fully enclosed places. You want to have those windows open and doors open, right? Host activities with people from your known area, your family and your friends that you know are practicing safe COVID. Encourage people to bring their supplies, their own supplies. For example, extra masks. Don't share masks. Bring extra masks, right? And bring lots of hand sanitizer. And here's an interesting one. If you're planning an in-person holiday gathering with people outside of your household, consider asking all of the guests to strictly avoid contact with people outside of their households for 14 days before the gathering. Yeah, that would be a little bit tough to follow, you think? So they have lots to say on that, but we don't have lots of time, so we want to stay focused. And if you want to know more about holiday travel, go to the CDC website and pull this up. I just Googled it. CDC, Halloween, boop, up it came. Traveling increases chances of getting and spreading COVID, so wear a mask, avoid contact 6 feet, wash hands, avoid contact with anyone who's sick, and don't touch your eyes and mouth and nose. And I know I've done that a couple times just on the show. It's really hard. Get your flu vaccine, and so forth. Let's see, where's Halloween? Halloween. Many traditional Halloween activities can be high risk at spreading viruses. And then again, we're not talking just COVID. We're talking common cold, the flu, and so forth. There are several safer alternative ways to participate in Halloween. If you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed to someone with it, you should not participate in person in Halloween festivities and should not give out candy to trick-or-treaters. Again, folks, common sense, but unfortunately, some people don't have it. I've had parents send kids to school having had an aspirin to keep the fever down, and 2 hours later, fever comes back. You have to send them home and then hope that they didn't have COVID, right? So let's see what the lower risk activities are. Carving or decorating pumpkins with members of your household and displaying them. That's the normal one, right? Carving or decorating pumpkins outside with friends and neighbors, but of course socially distanced. Decorating your house or apartment or living area, doing Halloween scavenger hunt where children are given a list of Halloween themed things to look for while they walk outside from house to house, admiring Halloween decorations at a distance. So you didn't hear trick-or-treating, you heard scavenger hunt. Having a virtual Halloween costume party contest. Okay. Having a Halloween movie night with people that you live with. Having a scavenger hunt style trick-or-treat search with your household members in and around your house rather than going house to house. So almost like a Easter egg hunt, only be a Halloween hunt. I wonder, instead of eggs, what would we use? Write in the comments. What do we think? What should we stuff our Halloween candy in around the house? Not eggs, because that's Easter. So what would we hide them in? Think about that. And then moderate risk activities are participating in one-way or trick-or-treating where individually wrapped goodie bags are lined up for families to grab and go while you continually social distance. So let's say that a family puts out bags in a neighborhood of candy. And so children, hopefully with their parents, take one and leave for the rest. That would be a moderate risk activity. Having a small group outdoor open air costume parade where people are socially distanced. Attending a costume party held outdoor where the people are distanced. You can celebrate apart. And attending a costume party where protective masks are used and people can remain more than 6 feet. I'm sensing a trend here. More than 6 feet apart. A costume mask, such as for Halloween, is not a substitute for a cloth mask. That's a good reminder. A costume mask should not be used unless it's made of 2 or more layers of breathable fabric that covers the mouth and nose and doesn't leave gaps around the face. Okay. Do not wear a costume mask over protective clothes mask because it can be dangerous if the costume mask makes it hard to breathe. Okay. Going to an open air one-way walk through haunted forest where appropriate mask use is enforced and people can remain 6 feet apart. We're doing that at our district. We're having haunted house drive-throughs, and the seniors are going to do it. They're going to dress up the cul-de-sac or the parking lots, whichever. We have both. We have a cul-de-sac at one location and big parking lots in another. And so we can, and then teachers will be giving, and especially for our remote kids that, they don't get to see their teachers live. This is an opportunity to see their teachers in person from the car, receive a bag of candy, go through the haunted house. So we're trying to be responsible and yet still have fun and acknowledge the day. Visit pumpkin patches or orchards where people use hand sanitizers before touching pumpkins or picking apples. Wearing masks is encouraged, and social distancing. Having an outdoor Halloween movie night with local family friends with people spaced at least 6 feet apart. If screaming will likely occur, greater distance is advised. The greater the distance, the lower the risk of spreading a respiratory virus. Some of these are okay. I would never have thought of that. Lower your risk by following the CDC recommendations on hosting gatherings or cookouts. Here are the high-risk activities. Nobody probably is going to be surprised. Avoid these higher risk activities to help prevent the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19. Attending large indoor celebrations with singing or chanting. Participating in crowded indoor gatherings or events. Having a large dinner party with people from different households coming from different geographical locations. Using alcohol or drugs which can cloud judgment and increase risky behavior. So, they just took the fun out of Halloween somewhat, but actually some of this stuff made sense. It did. And I hope that you will go to the CDC guidelines and that you will pull them yourself, read them again, share them with friends, and, just approach the holiday with your kids, not speaking down to, we have to do, this is what we can't do, in what we can do. That's a mental health strategy, by the way. You want to be able to talk to your kids about, in a really positive way, about what we can do to limit exposure while having fun and recognizing a traditional holiday or birthday or whatever, right? So remember what Miss Hudson said about the kids are watching you. Kids are watching you. And so if you stay positive around it, make lemonade out of lemons, they will learn how to do that as well. So I have a fun little ending here. Map of each state's favorite Halloween candy. And spoiler, some states have really bad taste. And I got a kick out of this since I knew I wanted to do the Halloween CDC guidelines. So let's find out from each state, right? So this is an interesting website, and they sort of write their things with a little bit of sarcasm. It's sort of fun. People love food, whether it's bringing in morning donuts, a baked treat, or seasonal goods. It's sure to win your friends and influence people in the workplace. After all, who wants to fire the donut guy, right? We did the pesky work of finding each state's favorite Halloween candy, so you know what to bring to impress. Warning, some of these states have pretty crummy taste in candy. All right, what we found out. Starburst is a favorite with 6 states loving the fruity squares above all else. The winner it is in, but it's between chocolate and non-chocolate, and guess what? It's a toss-up. 25 states prefer chocolate candies, while 25 prefer gummy candies, fruit-flavored candies, or other non-chocolate candies. If you ever wondered who liked those little orange and black wrapped candies deceptively titled Peanut Butter Kisses, the answer is Connecticut. Really, Connecticuters? You'd rather have those tiny, unpleasant tasting bricks than a Reese's peanut butter cup or crunch bar? New Hampshire? isn't much better, loving circus peanuts more than anybody else except for my grandma. 4 states favor candy that comes on a stick. Iowa may be home to the most candy lovers, and in addition to Starbucks, they like Jolly Ranchers, M&Ms, and Twix the best. Unsurprisingly, candy searches soar in October. Missouri is for nerds, and Alaska is for Smarties, those candies, right? Nerd candies and Smartie candies. And so you might be saying, well, how did they figure that out? They used Google Trends to determine which states were the most avid fans of each candy. And then they examined 50 different popular and some infamously unpopular candies. And and being sane, reasonable humans excluded gum from our candy list. Gum isn't a candy. Similarly, we excluded raisins, fruit snacks, and other things that people try and pass off as candy to unfortunate trick-or-treaters. There is a reason some houses get egged on Halloween, and it's because they aren't giving out the right treats, which my kids would tell you right away that to me. I found it very difficult to give out pure candy. And so, let's see here. While we did some candy shaming in this article, much deserved, circus peanuts, peanut butter kisses, runts, really, at the end of the day, candy is candy, especially when it's free. And if you're buying it for yourself, buy all the gross to the most candies you want. It's 2020, and if circus peanuts makes you smile, buy a Big Mac. With that, folks, as always, we're coming to the end of our time together. And so let's review a little bit, and let's refocus on why we're here. We had our mental health big moment, and great reminders and a great resource to tap into. I hope you will if you need that. We also talked about a Florida principal who seemed to have, through his neutrality, caused a huge blow up. We talked about outdoor classrooms and the need to really be more outdoorsy with our kids. Our kids are too urban in a lot of cases, and so that's really important. And then we talked about Halloween and how to stay safe during Halloween, and how to possibly have a decent Halloween with your kids, or even as adults, a Halloween party, and stay safe around it. If I'll put the article in the comments, because it has the list in the Halloween candy article, each state's favorite candy, which I'm sure a lot of you are very curious, right? But we are the Ask Dr. Be Good show. We come to you live at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings, and we rebroadcast on Thursday afternoons at 6 o'clock. And it's your opportunity to be able to listen to the interesting things going on in public education. We need for you to care more about public education. We need for you to become an advocate, because our kids are worth it, and our kids are our future. They are our economic future, doggone it, and we have got to make sure that we prepare them as best we can, even with this COVID time. There's no excuse. We have got to help mentor kids. We've got to help tutor kids. We've got to help teachers feel supported through this. Please, please, please make your school feel good about what they're doing with kids. And if they're not doing good with your kid, help them know that in a very professional way. If they don't respond to you, reach out to me. My email is on the Ask Dr. Be Good Facebook page. You can reach out to me and ask for the language, the words that you need to get the attention of your school to help rectify this situation that is making you feel so anxious and not helping you, especially now through COVID. Thank you, everyone. As always, we're here to serve and answer your public ed needs and